Hello, this is Catherine from Accelerated Reader Reading Books for You. Today I will be reading Chapter 5 from The Moon and the Magic Box by Michael Ross, illustrated by Magdalena Adic. Before I begin reading, I would like to give a big thanks to the author for sending me this book to read on my channel. In the description below, I've included links where you may find and purchase this book. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Chapter 5 Cringeworthy Meets Troy. The morning sunshine was streaming through Troy's window. It was tranquil. As the sun moved to shine on Troy's face, it woke him up. As Troy stretched and yawned, he wondered where Nesbit was. He sat up and, as he sleepily rubbed his eyes, noticed Nesbit crouched down on all fours and staring intently into Troy's walk-in wardrobe. Troy suddenly remembered the magic box and Pangy, the alien from the moon. So he jumped out from under his duvet. While he was doing this, he said to Nesbit, "Hey, Nessie, what are you doing, boy?" Nesbit continued to stare into the walk-in wardrobe and didn't move a muscle other than to wag his tail and growl slightly. Troy's mobile went off. It was a text. It was from Desmi saying, "Are you up yet?" To which Troy replied he was, and she should come up now. Then came a knocking at his door, and in walked Esme. "Wow," said Troy, "that was quick." "Well, I was up already and outside your door, but I just decided to text you in case you were still fast asleep." Desmi glanced at Nesbit and burst out laughing. It looks like Nesbit can't wait to meet our little visitor again. "Yep," said Troy. "I don't know whether Nessie wants to lick Pangy or eat him." And Troy laughed out loud as well. Suddenly, they all heard the radio tuning sounds. They came up closer to the box, which slowly started hum. Then the lid hovered on the top, and a white mist filtered out to finally reveal Pangy. Troy and Desmi began to snigger. It was because Pangy just looked so funny. Both his eyes came out on their stalks to their fullest extent. Then one moved to the left to look at Troy, and the other to the right to look at Desmi. Both eyes slowly looked Troy and Desmi up and down very slowly. Not only that, but where there was a pencil line of a mouth, Pangy had materialized a large pair of gleaming teeth in a very wide mouthed grin. The mouth and teeth were way too large in proportion to the size of his head and body. He just looked so comical. Even Nesbit lifted his head up and cocked his head on one side. What came next was the funniest of all. Initially, another radio tuning episode then taped laughter. Not only was it quite loud, but Pangy was changing the type of laughter. In other words, first of all, it was a baby, then a girl, then a grown man in quick succession. Each time there was a different sort of laughter. Troy and Desmi were laughing more and more until they were rolling about shouting out, "No, please, no more! Ouch! My stomach is hurting!" And so on. When they all calmed down, Pangy returned to how he was. Troy and Desmi stopped laughing, and they all stared at one another. Troy broke the silence and asked Pangy a question. Pangy, you mentioned last night that there's something called dammers, and that they were trying to steal some crystals? Can you tell me more about these dammers? Oh, no, no, very bad. They very tall. Tatty gowns all black. Have hoodies, but never see face. Good job, because they have ugly faces. They float around very fast. If they get you, they can suck the spirit from your soul. Excellent news, though they stink to high heaven. Smells like your earthen cow poo. If you smell warm cow poo and there are no cows around, watch out. Oh, yes, very much so. But good news I have for you. My box is a magic box, and it can protect you. Now I know I can trust you. I take you inside for a little look around, yes? Meanwhile, downstairs in the kitchen, Glynis was preparing breakfast. She was right in the middle of squeezing some fresh oranges and making up Troy's favorite breakfast, pancakes with crispy bacon and maple syrup, when she glanced out of one of her kitchen windows that looks onto the long and winding road that leads to the farmhouse. She spotted 3 black SUVs, followed by 2 small army vehicles. She was thinking they must be traveling fast because the cars were throwing up quite a dust plume behind them. Glynis turned to look at the big old-fashioned kitchen clock on the wall ticking away, and it read 5 minutes past 9. She thought that is a little early. Who could they possibly be? She quickly moved the warm pancake pan to one side and put the now cooked crispy bacon on a metal plate, covered it in tin foil, and popped it into the warm oven at the bottom of the Aga cooker. She wiped her hands on her kitchen apron she was wearing and went to the front door. She was just about to open the door when there was a loud knocking, which made her jump a little. She opened it, and facing her was Cringeworthy, Blackmood, and 2 other military police officers. Glynis stepped back half a pace with a frown on her forehead and simply said, "Yes, can I help you?" Cringeworthy rudely stepped just inside the front door and in a very authoritative military voice said to Glynis, "Ah, Mrs.?" Cringeworthy leaned back a little towards Blackmood, who was just to his left, who then whispered "Mount" into Cringeworthy's ear. "Yes, Mount, indeed. I am Major Cringeworthy, and this is my assistant, Sergeant Blackmood." All the while, his beady, inscrutable eyes never left the eyes of Glynis, who just gulped. "Could we come in?" continued Cringeworthy. "Good." Cringeworthy just barged in right up to Glynis, who had to step back a couple of paces. "We are investigating an incident that happened quite close to your farm yesterday evening, and I am hoping you can shed some light on it." Unnervingly for Glynis, while Cringeworthy was saying all this, he was slowly pushing forward, making Glynis backtrack further into her hallway. "This shouldn't take long at all," said Cringeworthy. At this point, Cringeworthy's eyes were darting all over the place, looking for something, anything that could give him a clue to someone, anyone that may have seen the alien object from last night. He continued, and I understand you are a widower, but you have a son 12 whose name is. Again he leaned back for Blackmood to whisper Troy in his ear. Yes, indeed, Troy. Glynis was a little flustered, to say the least, but ushered Cringeworthy and Blackmood into the living room. It is very customary that people in this part of the world would offer hospitality such as this, and would also include providing a drink, which Glynis did. Would you like a tea or coffee, Sergeant? Cringeworthy bristled a little at this, and in a louder than normal voice said, Major, madam, not sergeant. I am a major. Oh, right, said Glynis, who was now frankly fed up with his rudeness. Major? Okay, Major Chris Naughty, I have it now. Cringeworthy bristled some more. No, no, madam. The name is Cringeworthy. Cringe-worthy, okay? Glynis had taken an instant dislike to this rude man barging into her house in this way. She couldn't help it, but decided to wind this despicable man up in whatever way she could. Blackmood noticed the vein on Cringeworthy's neck beginning to pulsate, and that was bad news. Oh, I am so sorry, Major Cringestuffy. How's that? Feeling better now? Blackmood had decided she liked this woman. She had a natural knack of winding her boss up, and was enjoying watching Cringeworthy trying to cope with her without exploding in a fit of anger. For a moment or two, Cringeworthy took in a deep breath and let it out slowly. He had gripped his staff so tightly his knuckles had gone white, but now the blood had started to return to them. Blackmood had noticed this as well, and was smiling inwardly to herself. In a slightly calmer voice, Cringeworthy managed to say, No teas or coffees. We need to continue with my investigation. My credentials are as such. I am in sole charge of an investigation of an object that flew in the skies above you here and landed in the wood close by, known to you as Bramblewood. I have permission from the highest military authority to carry out this investigation, and must warn you to be as compliant and helpful as possible. Is that understood? As Cringeworthy was saying this, Blackmood, on cue, had handed Cringeworthy his badge and authentication, and he had flashed them momentarily in front of Glynis's nose before returning them to Blackmood. Cringeworthy went on to inform Glynis of the meteorite-like object that landed in a ball of fire in Bramblewood, and that when he arrived on the scene there was nothing but an empty hole where there should have been an object of some kind. The very same object that had entered Earth's atmosphere. He went on to explain that his officers were searching Glynis's outbuildings, looking for any clues that the object had been brought back here. Glynis told him she was busy painting, may have heard something, but couldn't be sure, and definitely no, she was not in the habit of bringing bits of meteorite back to the farm and hiding them from the military. At one stage, Glynis said to Cringeworthy, Oh dear, you do seem to be a very stressed man, Major Crangduthy. Maybe a weekend at a health farm may help reduce your stress levels. Blackmood was watching two veins on Cringeworthy's neck pulsating in unison now. Again, Cringeworthy took a deep breath in and pulled himself back from the edge. "Now," continued Cringeworthy, "I understand your son lives with you?" To which Glynis replied he did. He continued with, "Was he with you last night when you think you may have noticed or heard something?" To which Glynis said he wasn't. "So where was he?" said Cringeworthy. Glynis replied with, "Well, he was star watching up on the brow of the hill to the east. There is a massive acorn tree, and it is under there that he likes to watch the stars on a warm summer's evening." By now, Cringeworthy's mind was ticking like a well-oiled clock as he began to fit the pieces of the puzzle together. So he was thinking that could explain the hay on the ground under the oak tree he came across last night. Not only that, but the viewpoint up there would be perfect to see the entry point of the alien object when it landed on the outskirts of Bramble Wood. Blackmood, who was recording the conversation in shorthand on her pad, noticed Cringeworthy giving one of his vacant, inwardly smiling faces. He must be onto something. "Well, I think that is about it, Mrs. Mount," said Cringeworthy, standing, "other than to ask, where is your son now? And could I just have a quick word with him? Then we will be off." Blackmood was thinking not likely at all. Her boss has got the scent of something. It wouldn't be long before he would be going in for the kill. For some reason, Blackmood was thinking of the great African plains, and how the cheetah stalks a gazelle, ready for the run, chase, and kill. "Oh, he is upstairs. I will call him down," said Glynis. As she went to the stairs, Cringeworthy was on her heels while she shouted upstairs, "Troy! Troy! Can you come down for a moment, love? There is a Major Cringeloopy here and just wants to ask you a few questions." There was a panic going on upstairs. Of course, they were not sure what it was all about, but they had crept along to the top of the stairs and managed to catch the odd snippet of conversation from downstairs. By the end, they had a pretty good idea of what was happening. They had also noticed 5 minutes before the military police rifling and searching the barn outhouses outside. They knew something was up, so they explained to Pangy to get back in the box. Troy wrapped the box up. They told Pangy to keep very quiet. Troy padded downstairs. At the bottom of the stairs, Troy came face to face with Cringeworthy. Both had an instant dislike for each other. Cringeworthy stepped up quite close to Troy, spat out his credentials and what he was doing here, and then began giving him quick-fire questions about last night. Cringeworthy began, "What were you doing last night underneath that oak tree?" "I was stargazing," said Troy. "Did you see a fiery object come shooting over you to land on the outskirts of Bramblewood?" Cringeworthy answered. "I may have done," Troy continued. Cringeworthy leaned forward, so his nose was inches away from Troy's nose, and said very slowly and deliberately, "Well, which is it? Did you see something or did you not?" At this point, Troy, who was returning the stare into Cringeworthy's eyes, stepped back half a step and said while screwing his face up, "Oh, my God, your breath stinks." Glynis stepped in right away to admonish Troy for being so rude. Troy, my dear, you can't talk to the sergeant that way. Please apologize now. But when Troy looked at his mom, her eyes were smiling. It was the green light to continue being uncooperative, so Troy simply muttered, "Soz," under his breath. This was not the answer or response Cringeworthy was expecting, and he didn't react well to this at all. He suddenly shouted out menacingly to Troy, "Now look here, you little—" Cringeworthy caught himself in the nick of time, but then continued, "If you don't comply and answer the questions honestly, I will have you carted back to our makeshift military prison cell. Would you like that?" At this point, Glynis stepped forward to protest. No one was going to speak to her son in this manner. But Cringeworthy cut her short and said to her, with a sickly smile on his face, "Mrs. Mount, be very careful, for anyone who attempts to intrude and interfere with my questioning of a suspect could also be detained with military pleasure in my makeshift military prison cell. Let me inform you, we only have one toilet, and that is situated in one corner of the cell. Be under no illusions that you think the cell is a hotel. It is not, so I advise you to keep quiet." Troy did not like the way this buffoon was talking to his mom, so he gave Cringeworthy his most infuriating smile and said quite boldly, "You don't frighten me. I don't like bullies, and you are the nastiest bully I have come across. Look, I saw nothing, I heard nothing, and that's that." At this point, Cringeworthy straightened up, glanced around at the two MPs, and told them to go and search his room. They were up the stairs before Troy could react. He was now worried they would find Desme and the box with Pengy in it. He appealed to his mom to stop them, and indeed Glynis tried her best. But another soldier had taken his semi-automatic gun off his shoulder and was pointing it threateningly at Troy and his mother. Troy was waiting for the MPs to come downstairs, dragging Desme and carrying the box. Instead, they came downstairs and simply said to Cringeworthy, "No, sir, we searched thoroughly, couldn't find anything at all." "Damn," said Cringeworthy, "I just know something is going on." At which point he ordered the MPs to follow him, turned on his heel, and went outside, making his way to the barns. And there, walking towards one of them, with her back to him, was Desme. "Stop that girl now," said Cringeworthy. Two MPs came from one side and pointed their guns at Desme, who just stopped. Desme seemed to bend down as if to put something on the floor, and stood upright again, as if she was a mime artist. Cringeworthy was on her in a few seconds. "Turn around," Cringeworthy commanded, which Desme did. Again, Cringeworthy asked where she was last night, and she said she was stargazing with Troy, at which point Cringeworthy looked at Troy and said, "Why didn't you say she was with you?" To which Troy replied, "Well, you didn't ask me, did you? You're not very clever, are you?"
Oh, how Blackmood was enjoying this, watching this boy and girl run rings around Cringeworthy. Cringeworthy was seething. He needed to come back to this later. His gut instinct was all pointing towards these two. He would get them. By hell and high water he would. So Cringeworthy said, "I am not finished with you two. I will be back."
He spat this out at them, to which Glynis was now wanting to wind him up even more. "Okay, Major Crankworthy, you must try a health farm. It will de-stress you. Anyway, what's with the 'I'll be back'? You sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger." And with that, Cringeworthy and his entourage stomped off and left the farm in a column of dust. Glynis told them to go and wash their hands. She was serving out breakfast. As soon as she disappeared into the kitchen, Troy asked Desme what had happened. She told him she could hear what was happening and heard Cringeworthy order the two MPs upstairs to search the bedrooms. Luckily for her, Cringeworthy hadn't informed the MPs which bedroom to investigate. So they searched all the bedrooms. This gave her time to run back in Troy's room, pick up the box, and try to find somewhere to hide. From the box, Pangy asked what the problem was, so she quickly gave him a breakdown. He asked her where would be a better place to hide, and she had told him one of the barns outside. But there was no way she could get past the MP searching the bedrooms, or Cringeworthy at the bottom of the stairs. So Pangy told her to close her eyes, which she did. She then felt her whole body develop pins and needles, and a second later she was outside at the back of the farmhouse. Not only that, when Desme opened her eyes, she knew she was holding the box. She could feel it, but it was invisible. So she started walking towards the barn when Cringeworthy shouted at her to stop, which she did. She could hear them running towards her, so she carefully placed the now invisible box on the ground. At which point she whispered to Pangy in the box to carry on being invisible and turned to face Cringeworthy. Troy put his hands on his hips and laughed out loud. "That is simply amazing!" He went over to Desme and gave her a big hug. "I was worried that idiot would find you," said Troy. "He is pretty nasty. I don't like him at all. Let's put Pangy in the hayloft in the main barn and go and have breakfast. I am sure Mum will be asking us questions as well." Although I could tell she didn't like that Cringeworthy much at all. I nearly burst out laughing when she said he reminded her of Arnie. Desme bent down to find the box. Remember, it was still invisible, so she had to feel around for it. Then she could feel one corner, lifted it up, and they walked over to the barn. While Desme was still holding the box, Troy said out loud, "It is okay now, Pangy. The danger has passed, for the time being. We are just going to leave you here in the hayloft. You will be safe until we have had our breakfast." As soon as Troy said this, slowly but surely the box started to become visible. Pangy said that was fine, and Troy and Esme ran back to the kitchen. They washed their hands in the utility room, then into the kitchen proper. "Oh, that is typical," said Troy. He was pointing at Nesbit in front of the warm oven, convinced the crispy bacon was in there. Both he and Esme laughed and sat at the table and had breakfast with Glynis. She told them it was market day today, so that she would be out for most of the day, but then insisted they both tell her the whole story about last night. They would tell her everything except for Pangy. Too much, too soon, Troy was thinking, and that was how it was left for now. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay tuned for Chapter 6. In the description below, I've included links where you may find and purchase this book.